Welcome to the Plague Hive. I'm joined today by Colin Swisher, who recently piloted his Redline Uzuri list to an impressive 10th place finish at the Calling Baltimore. We're here today to show you his match against Michael Hamilton on day 1 of the Pro Tour. He ended up playing against him in the very first round of the tournament. If you haven't seen the match, we're not going to spoil the ending for you, but we thought it would be interesting to have a match analysis from Colin himself with the benefit of hindsight. As always, a link to the deck list will be down in the description of the video, so if you're interested and want to give this a try, check it out and play it yourself. The video has some technical issues in the beginning, so we decided to skip ahead a little bit to where it actually stabilizes so you can have a fluid video. So Colin, why don't you walk us over the equipment and the sideboard choices into this matchup and what exactly happened during the first 2 turns?
So yeah, the equipment suite is basically what you expect out of a normal Uzuri list. In my deck, I only run 2 daggers, being the Spider's Bite and the Nerve Scalpel.
Mm-hmm.
You only need 2 daggers, really, because Oldham is stop running Rampart versus Uzuri, so that eliminates all the need for the Scale Peeler.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, the Spider's Bite and the Nerve Scalpel are just twins that will never be separated.
Mm-hmm.
The Black Tech Whispers for my liked equipment is basic Uzuri 101. Blocks for 1. You can buy it back with silver. It's just great all around.
Yeah, I mean, especially in a matchup like Lexi where you don't really expect them to block. It's just flat out better than Snapdragons, right?
It's mostly the block 1 that really counts versus Lexi.
Mm-hmm.
In a deck with a lot of breakpoints, it makes all the difference.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense, yeah.
For the headpiece, it's a Crown of Providence. No surprise for a Redline list that doesn't play a lot of contracts and won't need the Mask of Perdition for extra banish.
Like you have, what, 6 contracts in the list?
5, actually.
5.
Only on 2
right.
surgicals.
You're on 2 copies of surgical, right? Yeah. So, yeah, no. Mask doesn't make sense in that situation. You just want the extra block ability to cycle the arsenal, once per game. It's good. If the opponent's running CNC, it can save you from that. It's like a get out of jail card for free. It's good. And then like...
That's a lot of versatility.
Yeah. Tunic, I mean, that's like... Yeah, I don't think there's a single matchup where you don't run Tunic, so that makes sense. And then, Flick Knives. I guess against Lexi, it's not that relevant since they're typically not running defense reactions, right? So it's really just there for the kill. If you ever get them to 1, they're just dead.
There's also Iron Rod Plus, per se.
True, yeah.
Blocks for 1.
Mm-hmm.
It can be helpful in some situations.
Yeah, definitely. And because they're not running D-reacts, you're not as, it doesn't hurt as much if you have to give it up early. You're like, okay, if I have to stop a critical on hit, I'll just throw it in front of it. It's fine. I don't need to stop any defense reactions by flicking Nerve Scalpel or something, so that's decent. And sideboard-wise, is there anything in particular you're bringing in against Lexi that you wouldn't bring in against other decks?
You'll see this later on in the match, but I do bring in 1 copy of Oasis Respite. Okay. This is mostly because I don't want to bring in all my red shreds, because no D-reacts means I'm not going to get much use out of shred.
True.
In general.
Yeah. It's kind of a dead card, and like with the yellows and blues, at least you can pitch them, or block. Obviously they all block for 3, so that's pretty easy. But yeah, Lexi generally doesn't really like blocking that much. It's true. So I would say, and then for the first turns, like I said, we skipped over a little of this because the video quality before this point is really bad. So Hamilton went first. And I think he just set up a double arsenal, right? Like he didn't actually attack you. It was just load an arrow and then put something else down in the second arsenal slot.
That New Horizons is so big for Lexi.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's huge. Like if you can force them to block with that, it makes the game so much easier. It's insane.
If I can get my opponent ever to a point where they block my New Horizon with their New Horizons, it's such a great position for the Uzuri player.
Yeah. Like we saw that in the, I think it was quarterfinals of the Pro Tour where 2 Lexi players played against each other, and then one of them blocked with New Horizons and then actually lost the game afterwards from like I think a 16-1 health lead or something. Just because not having access to New Horizons basically means Lexi almost never can arsenal a card, because she really requires the go again from the loading in order to do anything with her turn. So unless you have an arrow that has natural go again, which is like 1 in the entire deck, basically, it's just Falcon Wing, you really can't arsenal a card. It's really rough. So if you can get rid of New Horizons, it's basically almost a guaranteed win from there on, as Uzuri especially, yeah. And your first turn, from what I can tell, is like Spider's Bite, and he just took that. And now we're looking at a Nimblism into... What is that? Wither? A Wither. Okay, right. All right, okay. And
the reason I want to go with Nimblism Wither here is this matchup is all about Frailty.
Yeah,
Frailty
absolutely.
is all... If I can stack Frailties on my opponent, that shuts down their turn a lot. It slows them down. It can potentially make them... It just saves me so much health. And so many breakpoints.
Absolutely. Frailty against Lexi like is typically 3 life, sometimes 4 life. Plus, it makes their cards easier to block out, right? Because like all of the 4 power arrows, like Drill Shot, suddenly you can block those with a single card. 5 power arrows, suddenly you can block those with a Sink Below or something. It's just so good. Frailty tokens against Lexi are, I think, one of the reasons Uzuri has such a comparatively easy time playing into Lexi, right? I mean, on top of all of the arsenal disruption that you can get, the hand disruption that you can get, I think the frailties really go a very long way towards making this matchup as good as it is. Like if Uzuri can be said to have an easy matchup, it's probably Lexi, I would say. Certainly it feels like one of her easiest matchups, I would say, from my admittedly relatively limited experience. All right, let's start the video, see where this goes. And apparently
they're just gonna take it.
Yeah,
so
just takes
it scares me a bit.
Yeah,
it means that they're gonna swing big, but that frailty token's gonna save me so much life.
Yeah. Like if he's keeping a 6-card hand and you have a frailty on them, yeah. I mean, like the ideal card to have in this scenario would probably be like a frailty trap, because if you can stack 2 frailties on them, oof.
Yeah, that's a big problem. Art of War on a frailty turn just equal each other out, but
true. Yeah.
Still, I'm not too scared yet. That frailty token's still putting in work, equalizing the buff from Art of War.
Absolutely.
It's also an interesting choice for Lexi in this meta.
I think Lexi is like a little more nuanced than people give her credit for currently, because there's so many different ways you can actually build the deck. And you can actually see that in a lot of these Lexi decks. Like if you look at any Lexi list from the Pro Tour, no 2 of those are going to be identical, right? Like you have Hamilton with the Outer Wars. You had some decks running like a couple more ice cards, so they could run some of the fuse arrows, right? You have some lists running completely fuseless with 0 ice cards in them. It's just all very different. They've got a bunch of ideas there.
Now this is one of the biggest arrows I want to block.
Endless Arrow,
Endless
yeah, absolutely.
Arrow.
Yes. If he can get that back into his hand like all the time. Okay, you got an Aces, right?
Yep.
Nice.
So look at the card I pitched here.
Razor
being
Reflex.
Razor Reflex.
Okay.
The reason I pitched Razor is only blocks 2.
Yeah.
I'm probably not going to need it, and if I block with it, I'm not getting a full value from a card that blocks for 3. So,
like you're not going to be able to keep a hand that's large enough to actually utilize the Reflex in this matchup, probably. And he has the 3 of a kind, man. Like
yeah,
he's off to a good start.
This was a crazy wide turn, but that frailty token is just putting in so much work for me and my life.
Yeah, I mean, it's already saved you like, what, 2 life at this point?
2 life, make it 3.
Yeah, now it's 3 and then probably 4 from the drill shot, right?
Yep, after he fires the drill shot, I'm going to take this Mortals here because I'm not too worried about the on-hit trigger. Just 1 more life I'm going to lose, that's fine.
Yeah, for Uzuri, the on-hit trigger is really not that bad because typically it's like, okay, I lose 1 life, right? Like, because the daggers don't count for it, the reactions don't count for it, right? So it's like, okay.
You'll see I block my black text here. I mean, it's saving 1 life versus losing 1 life from the armor block.
It can sometimes feel bad that you have to block a drill shot with armor early, right? Because it really feels like you're kind of forced to block when they play it out just to preserve the value of that armor block. And then you don't have the armor available later because, I mean, it's in a Redline list, it's not exactly guaranteed that you'll be able to actually buy back the boots. Like, you can get them back once, maybe, but it's not guaranteed by any means, right?
At Redline, you're probably not going to get them back. They're probably done for.
It's like, hey, if you get them back, it's nice, right? It's cool. But you shouldn't bank on it happening, you know? That's kind of what I'm saying. Like, in a contract list against Lexi, you can look at buying equipment multiple times a game, typically, because they don't block, and you have so many things that hit the majority of their deck. You can reliably generate, like, 4 or 6 silver in a game pretty easily. But with a Redline list, like, yeah, it's less reliable to actually make that silver.
So you see that they block with the infecting shot, completely fine with me. I'm going to switch in a CNC, and suddenly I took 2 cards from their hand.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Like, you made their, like, make the 5-card turn into a 3-card turn, which is like infinitely less scary against the Lexi if they're on 3 cards, right? And then, all right.
It's just a minor rules thing here. We forgot the Morsa trigger, but it's all going to be sorted out.
Yeah, I remember.
I don't know why
I watched this live, and it took a while. So, all right, like, you didn't take the damage from playing the infect, right?
That's a sedate.
That's sedate, yeah. Sorry.
Basically, what happens here is Judge explains it was both our duties to make sure that it triggers. TLDR, I just let him have the damage since I didn't want to have a huge fight over it, to be honest.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Like, I think in that situation, I mean, you know, it's Pro Tour, it's Hamilton, but still, I think I would just be like, okay, you know, it's 1 damage, it's fair enough, you know, it's not like it might cost me the game, but it kind of feels like a little bit, you know, angle shooting to argue very strictly in this situation. Just go like, okay, yeah, no, I'm not going to take the damage now because, I don't know.
In the end, it doesn't really matter too much. I want to take this second to explain CNC in this matchup.
Sure.
CNC is very good compared to going to Lexi because CNC destroys all cards in their arsenal.
Yep.
So with New Horizons, that makes so much more of a difference.
Yeah.
Because you take both of their cards in arsenal.
Yep.
Where if you play Leading to Witnesses, you can only choose 1 card in arsenal.
And I think that the big part here is like, if any other hero plays a CNC against a Lexi with a double arsenal, right? Typically they will block with 2 cards from their hand. Because they can choose, like, these are the 2 least impactful cards for my turn, and generally what they have in arsenal is better than whatever they have in their hand, you know? But
problem is, you don't know if it's coming.
That's the thing,
big thing
right?
about Lexi,
like, that's the thing with Uzuri is you don't necessarily get the face-up CNC, right? You get a face-down card, which is like, okay, could be a CNC, could be a bluff, could be a, I don't know, death touch, shakedown. There's a couple of possibilities there. And we talked about this a little bit before the video, right? Where we were like, okay, yeah, this is like the main difference between like a Redline list and a contract list, right? With the contract list, your only stealth cards typically are Isolate and then maybe like a couple of backstabs, and that's pretty much it. So the opponent knows whenever you play one of those cards, there's a follow-up. Like, you're not bluffing with those cards. If you're playing an Isolate, it's because you have a swap in hand, right? You want to swap into something. And you're also not playing like Spikes or Razor's Edge or anything. So it's never, okay, I'm going to pump this up. And you're not going to see that coming. So there's no like forking or choosing different directions for your stealth cards to go, right? It's always, okay, if I play an Isolate, there's a CNC, there's a Death Touch, there's a Shakedown happening, something like that. And with a stealth list, you don't have that luxury of knowing there's something coming, right? Because you could just play a stealth card and bluff it and have a D-React in hand, right? So you just play like an Infect or something, or a Sedate, and if the opponent doesn't respect it, they get a token. If they respect it, they give you a card. Perfect. And you arsenal the D-React, and their turn is less impactful, you know? I think that's one of the...
I want to go over something real quick here. So... in my hand, I have Codex of Frailty and a blue. My Tunic's going to be open next turn, so I see Heat Seeker. I'm like, heck yeah, I'm going to take it. Since it gives me an extra card, I'm heading with the CNC next turn.
Makes sense, yeah. Right, because you have the blue, so you can go like Dagger into Codex into CNC off the Tunic.
Yep, that's exactly what I'm going to do here in a second.
Yep, makes sense. And he's
going to trigger the Heat Seeker.
This is like a Chilling Ice Vein,
Chilling
right?
Ice Vein, yep.
But it's not fused, okay.
No fuse.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pitch a blue. I'm going to swing with my Spider's Bite, gives him a debuff, which really incentivizes...
okay, you had a Rabble, so you kept that because Rabble is 4 damage on the offense versus 2 damage on the defense, and he's never gonna block 4, raw damage. So
what he's mostly worried about is the on hits. Those are what Uzuri specializes in. Those are what's scary about her.
Absolutely, yeah.
As you see, I'm gonna pitch this blue shred coming with Dagger.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's one of the also one of the difference between Redline and Contract. I think Redline runs generally more cards that are just vanilla damage, and those are cards that your opponent almost always just takes,
And there comes the Codex.
Unless it's like an Ultim or something, but. Yep.
So Codex does so many things in this matchup. It gives him a frailty. It gives me something I can threaten with. It just does so much in general.
And that lined up beautifully, like getting the blue, getting the Tunic up, getting the Codex. Because you're this list is on what? 5 blues?
Around 7 or so.
Seven blues, right? So you got the shreds, you got the 2 surgicals, and the 3 isolates, yeah. So 7 blues. So the chances of drawing one of those together with the Codex and then having that happen in the turn where your Tunic goes up to 3 is not that high, actually. But to be honest, if it was, if it didn't line up that way, you could also just arsenal the Codex, It's decent.
It's a Cinderella story kind of situation, but everything just lined up so perfectly. But
yeah. And the Dagger makes this basically impossible for him to block, right? He'd have to
almost impossible, yes.
He'd have to give you 3 cards in order to block this out, actually. Because it's a Lexi deck, so their cards are either attacks, and those only block for 2 because of the Spider's Bite, or they're non-attacks, a few of them, and almost all of them only block for 2. So I think the only card that Lexi runs that blocks for 3 and isn't an attack is sometimes
CLF,
Channel Lake Frigid, but that's pretty much it. And I don't know if all of them actually run it, right? Because you need a bunch of other ice cards to actually make the card work. So I think a lot of Lexi decks just don't run it anymore if they're going for fuseless. It doesn't
Most
really
fuseless
make sense.
Lexis don't run it anymore. Yeah. Is what I found.
It's just kind of a dead card because you need like at least, let's say, 6 other ice cards in the deck, I would say, to actually make it work.
So what you're going to see here is Hamilton
defensive Art of War.
Defensive. Yep. So he's going to declare block from Arsenal, which will pretty much take away the on hit of my CNC per se. But either way, I'm happy. I got the cards in his arsenal.
What's that? He pitched the Rain Razors for it? Yeah, okay.
Rain Razors, yeah.
Yeah, makes sense, because he had like two non-blocks in this situation. And then he blocks with the card from Arsenal, so that's blocking for 3. I mean, to be fair, I would say that's pretty decent value, probably. And he's thinking about loading with the floating resource just to get another
Which would be a smart move.
Absolutely, yeah. That's one of the disgusting things about Voltaire, is that it's instant on top of everything else that the card already does. It also allows you to do instant plays.
I agree, it's pretty disgusting, but
I mean, hey,
as you're going to see, I'm going to crack the Ponder, put the Ravenous Rabble into my arsenal.
Perfect arsenal card, you know. You don't hate having that in arsenal.
It's just free damage.
It's free damage, yeah, exactly. That's just good.
So, anytime I look at a hand, I'm asking myself, how can I disrupt my opponent's next turn?
Makes sense, yeah. And I mean, you have a bunch of ways to do that with Uzuri, right? Like you can do Arsenal threat with CNC, leave no witnesses, obviously. All of the inertia tokens, right? They're a little less effective against Rangers, in my opinion, right? Because they have the codexes, they have premeditate, and you can see a lot of Lexis run that too nowadays, actually. So they can have anything between like 3 to 9 sources of Ponder tokens in their deck. And obviously the Ponder just, you know, kind of messes with inertia because it basically just cancels it out. But inertia is still good, you know. Like on turns where they don't have a Ponder, it means they don't get to keep an arsenal. So that's pretty decent. And then, of course, you have the frailties. Those are obviously great against Lexi. We've seen that multiple times now already in this game.
So the frailty basically says, I don't want to use my Ravenous Travel in my arsenal because that's basically losing 1 value. And
wasting damage.
You might want to pause it here because I really want to go over this block.
Sure.
Quick. This is the biggest mistake I have made in the match.
Okay.
It's very hard to see. It's so minor, but after the match ends, I keep kicking myself about it. I'm not going to use that narrow scalpel like at all during this entire matchup, so that's 1 damage I'm instantly losing out of.
Right,
and
okay.
You're going to see later on in this match, 1 damage means so much in the eyes of Lexi.
Yeah, okay. So
and that nerve scalpel is not being used at all.
Because you never use the flick for anything. Okay, that makes sense, yeah. So you would say like the mistake of blocking with... Because like the idea is, right, you block this searing shot, which is coming in
it's for 1, that's
Oh,
it.
it's a blue one, okay. Right, because of frailty. So it's coming in for 1. So you're just like, okay, if I commit flick knives here, I'm saving 2 life, right? Because it's a searing shot. Makes sense. I get that. And then...
I mean, it's an easy mistake to make, but newer Uzuri players will take this trade as a positive. But if you're playing the top tables, this is a mistake you should never make. Never block with your flick knives until you've used every ounce of use out of it.
Yeah, okay. Because like you're never realistically using you never have the resources to just go like double dagger, right? Or if you have the resources to go double dagger in this matchup, you should have blocked more. I think it's like you shouldn't keep resources to go like Spider's Bite and Nerf Scalpel, because the Nerf Scalpel doesn't do anything against Lexi. And if you never flick the Scalpel, you're losing out on 1 damage. I get what you're saying. Yeah, makes sense. That's true.
You're going to see this bite me in the butt later on in the match.
So would you say that generally blocking out, like let's say we ignore that, right? Let's say you already flicked the Nerf Scalpel, you dealt the damage, you're like, okay, I can sacrifice this now because I'm not really going to need it. Would you still block in this situation? Because I feel like, I mean, it makes sense to save like 2 life with 1 block, but at the same time, I feel there could be a point further down the line where you're like, okay, I wish I hadn't blocked that, right? Because if you can block something like, I don't know, an endless arrow or something with a single card, for example, or some other arrow that has some really debilitating on-hit, actually, versus blocking what is essentially just raw damage, you know, because that's what Searing Shot is at the end of the day. Would you still make that play, or would you be like, okay, maybe I should save this for another on-hit further down the line that could be more relevant?
I mean, I would rather save it in hindsight for something like an Infecting Shot, which threatens 2 on hit instead of 1, but...
Yep.
I mean, it's fine when you look at it. If you block 1 for 1, you gain 2 block out of your Flick Knives, but that's what it was for. It's to push extra damage and have an outlet to use your knives.
Yeah. That
won't be used in a matchup normally.
Makes sense, yeah. Like it's just 1 free damage essentially, right? Like if basically you could be like, okay, if I flick Nerf Scalpel and then block anything with the Flick Knives further down the line, I've generated the same amount of value that I generate from blocking this blue Searing Shot. Because it's 2 value either way. And then if you flick first and then use it to block some relevant on hit, you've generated more than 2 values. I get where you're coming from, yeah. Makes more sense. All right. That's a good insight, yeah. But I mean, you know, I can imagine going to the Pro Tour where you know, yeah, okay, this is like almost as high as competitive environments go. And then you're being told, hey, so your very first match of the day, your very first match of the entire Pro Tour is against the current reigning world champion. And hey, why don't you sit down here and the whole thing is going to be feature streamed, you know? I can imagine
it was a lot of stress.
That adds like a whole different dimension of mental pressure to the entire match, right? I can imagine that, yeah.
I mean, Michael's in his element here. It's where his home is, feature match area. He's been here a ton.
Yeah. Makes sense. Right, let's
so what you're going to find here is this match is not about... this is my favorite turn. I kept a full hand here. Normally versus Lexi, you almost never do this, but I have a very good reason.
Okay.
Hamilton knows that my boost is open, so I'm probably likely to use it. So he's like, I'm going to block 6. I'm going to make sure that it doesn't go over. But the thing about Redline is I can do stuff like this. Razor's Edge. I'm going to pitch a red here. And I'm going to come over with Spike with Blood Rot. And suddenly, it's 9, and I have 2 on hits now.
And that's Wither, right? So he gets a
Wither
frailty.
And Blood Rot.
Yeah, that's pretty nasty, yeah.
So basically, I just generated so much value in a single swing.
That's pretty nasty. So it's like 5 damage, and then another 2 to 3 life that you save from the frailty token.
Frailty just saves so much life in general.
Yeah, frailty is insane. I mean, we said this, right? We said this repeatedly in this video now. Frailty against Lexi is one of the best effects you can have. It's just insane.
Any turn without frailty is a turn that isn't worth playing.
Like I think if you can just continuously keep giving them frailties, right? Their turns just get so much worse. Like they're leaking so much potential value.
I mean, you see here that Falcon Link's only come for 2.
Yeah.
Which is
you're happy to take 2, you know? It's like, okay. That's like if you flip a blue on a Rabble, you know? You're not gonna see a block from that, typically. Okay, here's a Codex, another one. Like this match, like card draw wise, is going really well for Hamilton, right? Like he saw what 2 3 of a kinds already. That's his second Codex of Frailty. Like the only thing we're missing.
I will say he got pretty lucky with all of his.
Yeah, the draws went pretty well for him. Like he didn't get to play out a single Rain Razor so far. We only see him pitch the one, but he played like an Art of War. Had to play the defensive Art of War. That turn was kind of a little bit of a brick on his part, I guess. But
3 of a Kind is just such an amazing card.
3 of a Kind is just it's stupid. It's just, hey, draw 3 cards. Okay. It's just, yeah, okay. I would like to draw 3 cards. Yes, please. Let me please do that. It's a very good card.
So another turn with frailty on my side. So that's another turn. I'm not going to use that Rabble.
Yeah, like you're just losing value if you play it, you know, and it's going to be there for another time. So he has another. Okay, but that's like the only Endless Arrow he has, right?
And it's only coming for 3 because of frailty, which is so huge.
That's pretty big. Like unless he commits boots, you know, obviously, then he can make something happen. But wait, why did that have go again? Did he? Oh, he loaded that. He loaded that with Voltaire earlier. Okay, right.
Yeah, this is the Codex one. I'm gonna play a Sink Below, sinking the card.
Yep, makes sense. Like I think in that situation, you don't worry too much about this being like slightly overvalue, you know.
So Hamilton also gets pretty lucky here. He's gonna trigger the Ponder first, and would you look at that? It's gonna be a blue. He's gonna pay for the Blood Rot.
Okay. I mean, you know, it still leaves him with that arsenal. Like you can't hate it entirely, you know.
I mean, I'm not completely hating it. He has no arsenal, which is great for me.
That's the thing. Like obviously the 2 damage would be nice, you know, but realistically, okay, you know, it's fine.
So I'm gonna come in with the Sedate here.
Inertia.
Inertia is just so powerful in general.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. Like, he already played 2 Codex of Frailties, right? Like the chance that he has another one in this hand is fairly low, I would say. Like, plus I don't think he's on Premeditate, and I haven't.
Hopefully so either.
Yeah, and I haven't seen him play any other codices, right? Like sometimes you see Lexi play Codex of Inertia. I've seen that crop up in a couple of lists. I think not in this specific matchup. That's mostly for Oldhim, as far as I know. But yeah, just the fact that you have this inertia and that just keeps him off Arsenal, that's already pretty good.
So this is
like, if he doesn't have an Arsenal, the most he can do is like send 2 arrows at you, right?
So this is a minor mistake on my part. I was a little bit too overeager with my Sink Blow and didn't save it for a searing shot like this. So
save it for an arrow that actually has like a relevant on hit other than going for a Falcon Wing. That makes sense, yeah.
I mean, it doesn't make too much of a difference, but in the highest tables, this is going to come back and bite you in the butt.
It's 1 life, right? Like the difference. If you block this with a 3 block, overdoing it the other way around, you save 1 life. So, yeah.
In the back of my head here, I'm like, 1 resource floating, 1 card in hand. He probably has a Codex, so I'm just going to be fine with taking 5 and
because he went go again on the second arrow as well, yeah.
He has no Voltaire triggers. It's likely a Codex he's holding.
Yeah. Or he's bluffing the Codex. Could be that too, but I've seen players do that actually.
He's going to close the combat chain, and there's only one reason to do that.
Yeah.
There it is.
So he got super lucky, right? Like he got basically back-to-back Codex turns in this game. And then he gets the third Codex on the turn that you gave him an inertia before, right? That's pretty lucky.
You're going to see he gets an infecting shot here, so that's a perfect time for my Crown of Providence to shine.
Yeah, absolutely. Like just go single card, Crown of Providence.
Block 5, save 2 more life.
Yeah.
Only save your equipment for on-hit blocks, like infecting shot and
searing shot, maybe like a heat seeker to keep him off the double arsenal for free. You know, that makes sense.
Wouldn't say searing shot is like the perfect example for a card to save it for, but
maybe not. You're right, because it's like just 1 damage at the end of the day. Like infecting shot is 2, so that's definitely like a better. And he keeps you from playing out that rebel, right? Like that rebel has been stuck in your arsenal for 3 turns now. That feels bad.
The thing is about rebel is it can be played at any time, so I'm not too worried about it being stuck there.
Because basically, I mean, you were forced to block with like 2 cards every turn anyways, right? So it wouldn't realistically make a difference. Because you kind of want to keep 2-card hands with Uzuri, right? Just for being able to bluff the switch, right? And make him put cards in front of a stealth card when they're not entirely sure. Because like if you have no cards in hand when you play a stealth card, they get a lot more agency over how they want to block this, right? Because all of the uncertainty of activating her hero ability is suddenly just gone. So if you want to actually play Uzuri, try to play stealth cards only when you have another card left in hand. That's all. That's what like one of the I think crucial differences between stealth and contract-based Uzuri lists, right? Because the stealth-based lists typically want to play 2-card hands, and contract lists are fine with playing 1-card hands as long as it's a contract, you know?
So you're going to see I switch into a Death Touch here, and when it hits, I give him a Frailty.
Yeah, makes sense. Like, obviously.
Frailty is just a huge lifesaver in this match.
Absolutely, especially when he has like a 5-card hand, you know? Makes sense.
No, definitely. And here comes Art of War number 2.
Number 3, actually.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Because
every time
that's one of the awful things about Lexi. Like she has so many power cards now, it's absurd. Like you have Rain Razors, 3 of a kind, Codex of Frailty, Art of War, right? That's like 12 cards in your deck that are power cards. Like you're almost guaranteed to draw one of those every turn. In fact, like the worst thing that can happen at that point is like drawing too many of them in one hand, right? Like, because at the density that Hamilton's running here, right? You could realistically draw a hand that is nothing but power cards. Like you could have a hand that's like Rain Razors, Codex of Frailty, Art of War, 3 of a kind. The worst part is that's not even necessarily an awful hand, right? Because you can just go like, okay, I just play out the 3 of a kind, draw 3 cards. That should give me some arrows to work with.
What you're going to see here is he's going to give me a Frostbite with his Lexi trigger. So
up, yep.
I'm originally like, this is fine. I'll pitch a red to play my ice, to play a stealth card, and switch in my shakedown hand.
Yep. Didn't he play the Art of War from Arsenal?
I think it was from hand.
It must have been from hand, right? Yeah. Yeah, I probably saw that wrong. Okay. So, and then he's just coming in with a Bolton shot. 4, 5.
So I'm just going to block with one of my 3 blocks here. Fine. Then he It's gonna come with the Winter's Bite, and I'm like, shoot, I'm not gonna get a turn next turn because of that Frostbite.
Yeah. Like, that's one of the issues, right? Because Uzuri, like for both versions really, Uzuri doesn't really want to pitch. So the Frostbites can be really debilitating because it basically means you have to keep an extra card to play a turn no matter what exactly your turn is. Right, and then he's loading the last arrow. Okay, and he's sending the Falcon Wing.
I'm like, I'm not gonna have that turn next turn, so what the hell? I'm gonna
Hang on,
block with everything.
shouldn't that Falcon Wing only come in for 3?
He's the bullseye bracers.
Oh, right, okay, so it gets a double buff, yes. Makes sense.
So I'm like,
makes sense.
I'm gonna take an off turn, see what he gets.
He has no arsenal, and the braces are gone, so that makes it a little
he also
less
has no
scary.
tunic,
He has no tunic counters, so yeah. Makes sense. You still have the Rabble in arsenal, and you know he doesn't have any frailties left, so if he doesn't have the ice, and he can't really have the ice because he didn't start the turn on an arsenal, right? Makes sense.
So I have a Codex of Frailty in hand, so I'm like, Tunic's up, I can get this card out of my arsenal, and I'm like, let's go.
Like, you can block with 3 cards, and your turn is like Rabble, Codex, Death Touch, you know, for 10 damage off of 2 cards, which is pretty nuts. Yep, Drill Shot. Puts the
He's going to put a -1 counter on my Tunic, which is no real surprise.
Sure, obviously, yeah. That's okay. You can work with that. And he loads the Heat Seeker. Yeah, you just double block this, I assume. Yep. Just double block for 6.
Give him all that double arsenal. Plus it's lethal, so...
Yeah, I mean, sure. That makes sense.
So, I finally don't have a frailty token, so I can finally use this Rabble for its full effect.
Yep.
And what do I flip? It's a yellow. Let's go.
I mean, it could have been a blue. You know, that's one of the reasons why I really... I don't know. I kind of don't like Ravenous Rabble because... I just have the worst luck with it, really, you know? Anytime I play Rabble, it seems to flip a blue, even when I have like 5 blues in a deck. It's just awful. It happened so much to me, really. Just like, okay, yeah, he's a Rabble for 3, you know?
No, that's what I was afraid about. That's why I didn't play the Rabble earlier. I wanted its full effect.
Yeah.
I'm still not getting full effect.
If you had played that on like an earlier turn, right, it would have come in for 2 if you flipped the yellow. So at that point, it really feels bad.
Or if I flip the blue, it'll come in for 1, which feels terrible.
Yep. Not a great card, yeah.
It still gives me a card, which is fine by me. I'm going to take it.
I mean, at the same time, you have to think about it, right? Like, the only card you could realistically replace it with is Hurl. And that would come in for the same damage in that situation. So, you know.
So I'm going to grab a Death Touch here. What a surprise. Great card.
Absolutely, sure. Like, if you have Tunic up when you play Codex, yeah, Death Touch is like your prime target.
And I don't believe I have Bleed No Witnesses in my discard, so it's my only real good target.
Like, I'm assuming he will double block this, but...
He already has a frailty, so
would you go for frailty again in this situation? Just give him the double frailty? Or at that point, do you just go pressure his life, give him a blood rot, or... I mean, you're on 2. Probably you just go frailty, you know, just be like, okay, fuck that. I can block out your 1-cost arrows with a single card now, so I'm not gonna leak any damage. Yeah, but he double blocks it. Yeah, that makes sense.
It does. I'm gonna crack the ponder, put isolate yellow into there, which is
good Arsenal target, right? So
yeah, I'm not going to complain about an isolate yellow.
Yeah, that's decent. And he is on like a 2-card hand now, so he probably just flips that and Arsenals, I guess.
Yep, that's exactly what it's going to do.
I could see that. Like, just set up the 6-card hand for the next turn and just hope that you don't have any disruption. Because that's the thing with Uzuri, right? Like, it's hard to quote-unquote brick on Uzuri, as in end up with a hand that you can't play. But you can totally brick on your disruption with Uzuri. And that can actually be... That's one of the ways you can lose the Lexi matchup, right? Like if you draw no disruption for 2 turns in a row, for example, especially in a situation like this when you're already low on health.
I mean, my opponent is also low on health, so
true.
Coming with a big attack is also disruption.
Yeah, that's true. Like if you manage to find like an E-strike, you can send that for like 7 damage or something. That's lethal, right? So he has to give you at least 1 card. Probably 2 to be safe, because otherwise he goes to 2, and that's also not really a situation where you want to be against a deck that basically has like access to dominate on demand.
So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pitch to a Spire's Bite, because...
Makes sense. Make it harder for him to block whatever you got.
No, yeah, Spire's Bite on a big hand turn is always safe versus Lexi.
Yep.
Makes him trickier to block, and what I'm going to do here is kind of similar to what you said. I'm going to play a Nimblism and E-Strike bottom and sink below. Come to 10, and he has to respect this.
Okay, right, yeah. Yeah, just come in for 10, save the isolate, makes sense.
Not to mention, 10 damage is no small feat. He'd have 5 life, and his
that's true.
Attack actions block for 1 less.
2 now, so basically if he wants to... Like, if he blocks with 2 cards, he's still dead, so he has to give you 3 cards. And even then, he's leaking a bunch of damage, so... Yep, 1, 2, 3, there we go.
And this is why I said the biggest mistake in this match was throwing away that Flick Nines.
Oh, because now he's at 1. I get
it, what you're going to see here is if I had 1 more damage, he would have had to block with that last card or his New Horizons or the Tunic, which would make it that he can't play his next turn how he wants to.
Yeah, makes sense. Because either he loses the Tunic or the New Horizon, makes sense. Man, that's rough. Okay, so he's flipping.
Yep, he's going to fire this drill shot, and in the back of my mind, I'm thinking...
And then just use
he probably has a Rain Razors.
Does he even have cards in hand left?
He has 1.
He has 1? Okay, I'm not seeing
So
that.
in the back of my mind, I'm thinking he has Rain Razors, but if I block with 2 cards and respect it, he's going to crack the Snappies, crack the Tunic, go in more Remorseless, then I'm pretty much in a losing situation.
I mean, he would probably do that anyways, right?
If he doesn't, he just plays the Rain Razors.
That's a tough situation, honestly.
Yep, and there it is. Yeah. That's lethal.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Like, I mean, this situation sucks because, like, realistically, I mean, you could go like double block this, force him to crack the Snappies, right? And then double block the Remorseless too. And just be like, okay,
it'll be a losing situation.
I'm just gonna take an off turn,
At 1 life, that's pretty much a death sentence.
Yeah. Like, it's rough. It's hard. That's nasty. Yeah, I get it. That's a rough situation. I don't think there's a lot of ways to salvage this. Like, probably you could go, okay, just full block, 4 cards.
Even then, he saves his Rain Razors.
And then he saves the Rain Razors in Arsenal. That's kind of the worst part about it, It's like it's kind of like playing around a pummel or any attack reaction, really, right? because then they put it in arsenal and you just know, hey, it's going to be there the next time they attack and the next time they attack and the next time they attack. You know, that's kind of the worst part. And you know it's
especially
there,
if you're at
but
one life.
yeah, it doesn't really help. Yeah, no, I don't really see how to salvage this realistically.
I mean, I was in a losing situation. I kind of had to play like, if he doesn't have the Rain Racers, great, I can win this. But if he does, then, well, I'm kind of screwed.
It makes sense. You just go like, okay, I'm hedging my bets. Because if he doesn't have it, I have an actual turn. And if he has it, I'm dead. But in that situation, I would be dead either way, probably down the line. So I get the thinking there. That makes perfect sense. But yeah, it's a definitely very, very interesting matchup. I think generally, I would say it's safe to say that Uzuri is favored into Lexi, in my opinion. A lot of things have to go right for the Lexi in order for her to actually win. And a lot of things went very right for Hamilton in this match. And it was still incredibly close, right? Like, you can see that from this match. Like, he basically got the perfect draws. He had a power card every single turn of the game, I think. I don't think there was...
Every time I tried the destruction, he had an answer.
I think the only time where he didn't have like a power turn was a turn where he was forced to play out that defensive auto war. But I don't remember it right now. But basically every other turn that he had, it was either like 3 of a kind, out of war, drawing him a couple of cards and giving him his entire turn +1, nullifying a frailty token, for example, or he had a Codex of Frailty of his own. So yeah, like he definitely got a little bit lucky with the power cards.
It was a constant barrage of things.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, that's Lexi for you. She can do this. She can just pull this out of her hat. And like, imagine playing against her with a deck that doesn't have access to this constant disruption the way Uzuri does, right? Like, I mean, I come from Levaya, right? Like, that was my main hero before I picked up Uzuri. I played Levaya. And Levaya against Lexi is just awful matchup. You get run over basically no matter what list she plays. Like, either it's an Ice Lexi and you cannot play her in turn because they hit you with like 4 Frostbites from an Arctic Incarceration. And then you're just like, okay, I can't play anything because my hand is all reds. I guess I'm going to die to Blood Depth now. Or it's like a Fuseless Lexi and they just steamroll you because they can just pull like 15 damage turns out of nowhere. With stuff like 3 of a kind or something. You're like, okay, I'm here like struggling to deal 12 damage every turn, basically praying that I get to see an early blood rush. And if I don't, I just don't really have a chance of winning this matchup. So playing that with Uzuri definitely feels like a lot better just because you have agency, right? Like, you don't mind blocking out with 3 cards. You can still have some disruption into them. You can crack back with some stuff. And it actually feels like a matchup that you're relatively favored into. And a lot of things have to go right for the Lexi and wrong for you in order for it to turn around and actually make you lose, you know? So,
I mean, I don't think anything went truly wrong for me. There wasn't a turn where I was like, crap, I can't do anything. But
true.
It was definitely a turn game where he had answers to all my threats, which was very annoying.
Yeah. All right. So this was definitely a good matchup. Like, definitely interesting to go over this with the benefit of hindsight and just looking at it, analyzing it a little bit from your perspective again. And hopefully you folks can learn a little bit from this and get an idea for how the deck operates, how the Lexi matchup works. And you can see that it's a very close matchup. Like, even if a lot of things go right for the Lexi, Colin almost won this against Michael Hamilton, no less. So, you know, that's no mean feat. The guy's not bad at this game, or so I've heard. So, yeah, as I said, if you want to check this out, I'll put a link to the deck down in the description of the video. So if you're interested in this and you want to give Redline Uzuri a try, go check that out. play it yourself, see how it goes. It's a very fun deck. I definitely recommend it to anybody. And that's it for today. Thanks for having you here, Colin.
Thank you.